Your family loves you, and you should know it. My name is JC, and today I'm going to talk to you about how I reconnected with my family throughout COVID. The last few years were a struggle for all of us. We were all affected in ways people can't imagine. Families were broken, businesses were lost, and I, unfortunately, gained 20 pounds. Still trying. But let's get serious. COVID has changed our lives forever, whether it's by a small effect or by something so huge that our whole lives are destroyed. Young people like me, you, and the kids down the hall doing math exams are almost all separated from their family. Preventing the visits, the exchange of love, and the caring of family. We are all battling the invisible barrier that we all call COVID. Now, before I get into my personal experience, I want to ask everybody what reconnecting means. To me, reconnecting means to go back and to reflect on mistakes that you made in the past. To acknowledge that even if you can't do it then, you can still change and you can still do it now. Well, does anyone here have a friend who is away because of the pandemic? Oh, that's a few. Well, maybe because of the pandemic, you lost a friend. If you really are his friend and want to go back to him, do something about it. Be like, hey, it's been a long time since we've been together. Want to Skype or grab a drink at Starbucks? It's just that easy, just that one simple sentence, and then you can go back to the life that you long wish for. Now that you have a general idea of what reconnecting means to me, it's time to tell you a story that I'm willing to share with the AISG community. It was the December of 2019. Me and my family returned from a happy trip from Melbourne, Australia. Looking out the window, I hear my mom and dad talking. Adult conversations. So boring and dull. Or so I thought. So I continued to look out the window, staring at that one perfect bush that I was staring at. Just that one perfect bush I was staring at. Seconds ticked by and something caught my ear. COVID, we now need to wear masks. Look, it's in the article. That was my mom's voice. And that was the moment, the nightmare, that all started. Half a year later, I was in my room sleeping when my mom walked into my room. Turning on the lights and asking her what happened, she was on the phone with my grandmother. There was a sense of worry and urgency in her voice. Turning on the lights, I asked her what happened. She said that my great-grandma lost the ability to speak. She was muttering gibberish now, and she said that my relatives in Shandong are now taking care of her. And that's when I realized how long I haven't talked or simply even saw them in person. Now that I fear this pandemic, this nightmare would never end. Now was when my mom spoke again. I was thinking of visiting your relatives in Shandong. It'll give you a chance to talk to them, to get them know better, and to even deliver happiness to them. I nodded, and she got up and left the room. So at that moment, I was feeling a mixture of feelings. I was happy, like every other kid in the world. I mean, who isn't happy about traveling? But I also had this other unique feeling. Felt like the barrier between my family and my family in Shandong and I were going to be broken. Letting that thought sink in, I let dreams take over me. Fast forward into spring break, our jumping air descended as we are arriving into Shandong. I gave myself a little time, thinking about all the feelings that will overcome me. I thought about the happiness and all the awkwardness that I feel, but I knew this was my chance, so I wasn't going to let it slip. I held tight, and we touched the ground of Shandong. Now, Shandong was a beautiful place, but I didn't have time to admire its beauty. We were whisked right away by our grandparents, and my grandma took a real good look at me. "Oh my gosh, you're so fat," she said. I knew it was true, but it didn't make me the happiest kid in the world. But I nodded, and she kept on saying other negative things about me. Things like, "Did you do your studies? How are your friends?" And things like that. Those little comments built instinctively into conversations. At this point of the story, the emptiness inside of me started to fade away. I realized that 5 minutes of face-to-face contact can be 5 hours of call and social media. Reconnecting throughout social media can never replace reality. Now, does anyone know what this is? Yes, it's an iPhone. We depend our lives on iPhone. Now, who here has an iPhone? A lot, yes. Now, who here uses their iPhone often in social media platforms like Instagram, Snapchat, YouTube, Facebook? Come on, guys, too many. And who here is so immersed in their phones that sometimes they forget when people are talking to them? They are so mesmerized in their phone that sometimes you forget reality. Do you guys have this feeling? Okay, people are not being honest. Research from Statista.com shows that an average person spends at least 2 hours and 15 minutes on their phones each day. If you subtract you eating and then you sleeping and everything else that you do, there's not much time for face-to-face contact. I think that we can all agree that our parents spend at least 2 hours, 3 hours, or even more on WeChat, claiming that they're doing work. But sadly, we are no better. There are millions of calls, texts between family each day. But don't we prefer it when we can meet in person? Isn't reconnecting much more meaningful when you can talk to them, you can hug them, you can, do whatever you do to them? But of course, there are exceptions. Not everybody can talk or meet face to face when you live in different continents. In the end, we all have to do to make the best of it. For the next 2 days, I went to visit. Now back to the story. We were going on the highway when we were called to pull over. While my grandma and mom went to deal over to the problem, I was stuck in the car with my grandpa. I was waiting anxiously, hoping that my mom and grandma would come back soon, because I didn't want to be stuck with my grandpa. And so now as my grandpa spoke, "How are you doing at school?" "Good," I replied, like how every other kid in the world would reply. But he wanted to know more. He wanted to know how I was doing in my studies, if I was making friends or not, and those kind of stuff. So then I started answering them with more honesty and sincerely. And then it started to feel normal again. And then my mom and I started to lose track of time, and my mom and grandma came back, and the mission to reconnect continued. For the next few days, we went to visit my great-grandma. Even though my mom told me that she couldn't speak, I was still very, very surprised. Looking at her muttering gibberish, I was astounded. So at that moment, I was really afraid. It showed me the horrors of getting old. But then I got back at it. And then over the course of these days, I would try to spark a conversation or play chess or, cook with my grandmother. But the most memorable thing was when we were all watching a comedy show. Some of you may know it's called Running Man. And everybody was laughing, worries behind us, and we were all having a great time. So that was my most memorable moment. But this moment led to me to realize that sometimes when you connect, you don't have to talk to them or actually have to have a conversation. Sometimes just being there can give you the idea of reconnecting. The last day was the hardest. When we said our farewells, it pained me to see my great-grandmother crying, although she probably doesn't know what's going on. As we headed to the airport, we would look back frequently just to think about the past 7 days of what we had done. As we entered the airplane, we would think about what happened this week and what we felt and those kind of stuff. Now that I think back, I realize how precious those few days were, how easily I can get distracted because of technology. I mean, who isn't distracted of technology? I realized that separation from family has started to become something global. I realized that separation from family has become something global, and that Sometimes young people like us, sometimes even forget how your relatives look, which is a big problem for me. But to summarize it all, COVID has been hard. It has separated us from nearly everything. But to every negative thing you get a positive thing back. For example, you were stuck with your roommate. Well, you can know him better. Maybe you guys all watch that TV show that you like or have a common interest. It's just like that. Now, reconnecting is hard. It's not as simple as getting a cord and plugging it back in. It takes risk, bravery, and acknowledgement that sometimes not everything is going to go the right way. That sometimes things are not going to go the way you planned. This has been an amazing experience for me, and I wish that you have learned something from it. Thank you.